Welcome to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein, talking about the evolutionary, the revolutionary, the inspiration and the perspiration, and those aha moments that change everything. And now, here's your host, Rich Goldstein.
Rich Goldstein here, host of the Innovations and Breakthroughs podcast, where I feature top leaders and the path they took to create change. Past guests include Joe Polish, Ryan Dice, and Rick Cesari. This episode is brought to you by my company, Goldstein Patent Law, where we help you to protect your ideas and products. We've advised and obtained patents for thousands of companies over the past 29 years. So if you're a company that has software, a product, or a design you want protected, go to goldsteinpatentlaw.com, where there are amazing free resources for learning about the patent process. You could email my team at welcome@goldsteinpc.com to explore if it's a match to work together. You could also check out the book I wrote for the American Bar Association that explains in plain English how patents work. It's called the ABA Consumer Guide to Obtaining a Patent. I have with me here today my friend, Sumner Hobart. Sumner has been an Amazon seller since 2017. His mission is to discover the most efficient ways to generate substantial personal profit online in order to live life to his fullest potential. And on his well-known YouTube channel, Sumner and Allie Hobart, Sumner and his wife Allie help others along a similar path toward their own fullest potential. And with that, I'm happy to welcome my friend Sumner Hobart to the podcast. Welcome, Sumner.
Great. Thank you, Rich, for having me. I'm super excited for this.
Absolutely. My pleasure. So give me a little bit about your history and as an entrepreneur. How did you get involved in selling? How did you start out?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. That's a question I ask all the time to fellow sellers. And it is interesting because there's always that first entrepreneurial spark, at least that I've seen in a lot of entrepreneurs. And I can kind of say what that was for me. So for me, kind of started, I was in college, broke student at the University of Cincinnati. And basically, I was trying to find ways to make more money. So at the time, I was actually working for the school newspaper, the News Record, and I was on the sales side. So literally on one side of the hallway in Swift Hall, there was the editorial side. On the other side, there's the sales side. So I got this job as my first sales job. And I will say at the time, we didn't have the best management at all. So I came in, this is like and also this is my first like real job, like, in college. I'm like, oh my gosh. Before that, I was working for a moving company, like through high school and then into college. My first real job sounded great. So I go in, I'm given no training, just kind of like, hey, here's an old list of leads of local businesses. Go sell them on ad space, sell ad space in the newspaper. So that was my job. And I figured out a lot of things. And one thing I learned really quickly is that none of the students were reading our school newspaper. And I didn't feel right trying to sell ad space when I knew, local restaurants or businesses, apartment complexes, they're not going to get results if I know they're not going to get a return on ad spend because our newspaper gets no visibility. So I was kind of in this like my role requires me to make sales, but I ethically can't sell ad space as it is. So I had this kind of dilemma, and then this entrepreneurial kind of thing kicked in, and this is looking back. I didn't realize it at the time. I was just like, I need to solve a problem. And what I did is I went around campus and I started noticing that there's these bulletin boards all over campus, and actually went through every single hallway and every single building on campus and counted about 260 boards that students are allowed to post on. And I looked at the rules of like, what are we allowed to post on these or not? And it's actually pretty free. We could post basically advertisements on these bulletin boards. And I did a lot of research. I went to the school printing, company where I got a student discount. So I was like, okay, I can print, this many flyers for this cost. Here's what I could realistically charge. Like just first time doing everything, like the pricing strategy, where it would be posted, how to market it to businesses and pitch it. But basically, it was over Christmas break. The whole Christmas, I was like hustling and working on building this project out. When I came back from Christmas break, I presented this to my boss, and he's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's roll with it. So it's basically one product or one service that we sold alongside all of the others, but that's all I sold. And I sold a decent amount. So then I went to all the local businesses, literally like door to door, going through, introducing myself, cold emails, cold calling, and it was very, very successful. I then had the idea of adding perforated tabs at the bottom where literally like, it was my wife and my girlfriend at the time, not my wife. went to each other's apartments and were like literally like taking stacks. We figured out how many stacks of paper we could put on top of each other and cut without getting too like out of alignment. It was like 50. Like that's the max that we could do with this like cardstock. And we started cutting. So anyway, long story, that was kind of the first, is creating this flyer posting service for local businesses. That was like my first unknowingly kind of entrepreneurial endeavor. And that's what really got me into kind of like more the marketing and advertising side. And
You created a new channel. You created a new advertising channel on campus.
I did. And and the last time I checked, last year, the news record is still using that service that I kind of created, which is really cool to see. And that's kind of the entrepreneurial building something that lasts. It's a really, again, at the time I had no thought of it, but it's a really beautiful thing. And that's something I'm actually really obsessed with now. I love seeing of building something that not just obviously that generates income, which is amazing, but has a positive impact for years or decades to come. So that was kind of the beginning. So it's like, how does that tie in with Amazon? Like, how does that have anything to do with selling
That's
products?
amazing. I just want to interject with my own story here too. It's kind of funny. Like when I was on campus, I saw a similar opportunity. They were, at my college, we were out on Long Island, which is it was about 75 miles from New York City, and the TV stations really originated from New York City, and but the reception was terrible, and in the dorm you couldn't really get TV reception, and they had people would try to put like a TV out, an antenna outside their window, and this is really dating myself because like a TV antenna, like what are you even talking about, Rich? But it was bad. Like there was hardly anyone get TV service, so they installed a cable TV system throughout the campus, where suddenly, in everyone's room would be, all of the channels, like the local channels, not like cable today. But the point is, so like now all of a sudden everybody has a cable television service, but they don't know what's on TV. And this is pre-internet, right? And back in the day, the way that most people would get to see what's on TV is you either get TV Guide. It was a subscription service, right? There's a little book that, like before you were born, right? But like a little book where they had interesting articles and all the TV listings. Or in the newspaper, they published the TV listing. So if you're on campus and you don't get TV Guide and you don't have the TV list, you don't get the newspaper, then how are you going to know what's on at 8 p.m. on channel 4 and NBC? So I had the idea to publish a TV guide and have advertising in it. So I made a magazine that was essentially a way for students to get their listing information, and also it was an opportunity for advertisers. And so I went around and I sold ads and got wrote articles, and we made some relationships with some of the TV networks to kind of get the press photos and things like that for the new shows. And it was actually even a challenge to get like the listing information, because remember, this is pre-internet. You couldn't Google things so I found that there was a company that actually syndicates all that information for newspapers around the country, and I signed up with them, and they would send me the TV listings on film. Like basically, it's like it's basically printed on shiny paper that you could then paste up, and when you do the paste up to make the magazine, which again to you probably sounds foreign, because I'm sure everything was desktop publishing when you were at the newspaper. But when I did it, we literally put together a page where you would, with a glue stick, paste in the headline and all of that, and bring that to the printer. But similar.
Very cool.
One of my early entrepreneurial experiences was an on-campus advertising medium, where I went around and sold ads and kind of created value that way. So I just wanted to throw that in there. I don't think I've ever told that story here before. So
that is very, very cool. That is very cool. No, it's I could definitely I totally see the value of that. It's funny because my first step was trying to find ways to make our newspaper more valuable, whether the physical or digital kind of edition. And that was just cut down immediately, because all the editors, they're journalist students who just write what they want to write, not write what's valuable. So, obviously you clearly, you base, of course, which is just kind of entrepreneur 101, right? Like solving a pain point, then monetizing it. Here's something that all students need, or at least whatever percentage of students need, and then monetize. So yeah, that's kind of very, very, I love that story. Yeah. I'll have to share that with my old boss. But yeah, that was kind of like my first start. Then after college, kind of never thought about entrepreneurship, never even considered that entrepreneurship. So I applied to like 50 companies, got interviewed by like 3, ended up getting accepted at the one company, which is also the one company that I was really excited for at the time, called Crush Republic, which was a qualitative research company that mainly worked like 80% or 70 to 80% of their work was from Adidas, or Adidas for the European audience. So it's really cool work. So basically it was basically like mini focus groups, but on phones. So like if Adidas was trying to collect data from a certain segment of high school athletes, we would actually it's funny, we utilized the company, which I could have easily brought in-house and saved a ton. As our biggest cost was recruitment of these different participants. I was actually, anyway, that's later in the story. Before I quit, I was actually planning to bring that in, fully build it out for them, this whole system, but it didn't happen out that way. So we'd find recruits, kind of pair them, and they would go through this kind of gamified like focus group or survey where they would they would film your kind of like their game day outfit. Like, do you dress, top, you put on a top and then dress down, or you start with this, the sneakers and then move your way up, or whatever it might be. There's all kinds of interesting kind of questions that Adidas was trying to uncover. And then we also had a certain budget to just go and like find new interesting insights that they would never have thought of on their own. So it's really cool work. The company flew me out to Portland to their office. It was really, really cool. But I quickly noticed, being my first kind of official job, that I didn't fit in. First of all, the company culture was toxic. There's a lot of drinking, talking about hookups. I packed my lunch every day. I was very much, and still am, a loser. Like I was never a cool kid. It was, so there's that cultural difference, but then also I'm like, man, I have all these.
You weren't a so-called cool kid. But you were, I'm sure you were cool in your way, right?
I think about it, yes.
Let's be clear about
my mom and my wife thought I think I'm cool, so that's all that mattered to me. So
right. Like I don't know if those guys are so cool either, Like, so,
and I love them, by the way. If they happen to listen to this, I love you guys. But they knew, like we know, and it was just kind of this realizing within the culture. But more than that was, and I realized really quick, I'm like, oh man, I'm not built for this, whatever you want to call it, like 9 to 5 or maybe more traditional corporate life.
Right.
And there's this, and also the work, it was just really like, I graduated summa cum laude from university. I was very, very dedicated student. And here at the job, I was having all of this trouble. Like, it was like, there wasn't clear direction. So anything I was getting, I was, doing my best, giving it back. And it was like never good enough, or it wasn't really what was expected.
Yeah.
I was kind of getting thrown around to a lot of people. I didn't know exactly who to report to. So there's a lot of cool work that I got to touch on, but overall it was very unfulfilling. It was very stressful. I'm like, how can I not figure this out? And I'm just like, you know what? I bet if I took the same energy and skills outside of this company, I can make more money and be more fulfilled. So I was like, so I within 6 months of starting, I'm like, I quit. And
it wasn't a fit. And it's really interesting because you talk, the intro I gave of you is that you looking to reach your fullest potential, and you help people to reach their fullest potential. But it seems like you've kind of come up, like working within the system, you've come up against limits in that, where like you've had a real great way to optimize something and to add efficiency to it. And it's just like, you couldn't do it within the existing framework, right? You couldn't do things to their fullest, right? And you graduated summa cum laude, which means that you really excelled at at doing the work, following the pathway that set in front of you. But yet, like now, when you're out producing in the world, like you can't produce to your fullest potential because there are all these other rules that are being put on you. There's this culture around you that doesn't really fit, and so it's like it almost seems like something had to break, to say like, hey, like I can't continue on my mission, like while being within the framework where I'm being told, like, hey, this thing that might actually be more efficient, we're not doing that. So yeah.
No, 100%. I got to the point I was, and I'm not really afraid to say it, but I was like crying in my car, like at work, just from it was frustration, it was stress. And I'm like, I can't, and it's funny because my dad.
It's like you're being held back. You're being held back.
Yeah. And it was tough too, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, I've talked to, obviously, and you have especially talked to many entrepreneurs or entrepreneurial minded people. And there is kind of similar thread between everyone. And it is difficult when you're not with other entrepreneurs. It's a totally different, how we look at time, and how we view how we can accumulate wealth and grow wealth and things like that. All different things. Innovating. It's kind of tough. So like my parents are a bit more traditional. My dad worked for Procter & Gamble for like 35 years. So I would talk to him. He's like, no, you just got to stick with it. This is what you do. And I'm like, I know. And like, maybe I'm just being like, a typical millennial, like, I'm better than this or whatever. And I'm like, I don't know. But I felt something else. I'm like, no, I'm not supposed to be here. Like, this isn't right. So I ended up quitting. And I had no idea what I was going to do. So what I ended up doing is I actually went back. And during this time too, I was learning Facebook ads, Google ads, and I was running a little bit of that. I went back to my past clients in college because it's what I knew. And it was like, hey, I know we posted, we're doing this flyer posting service on campus, went really well. I actually run a lot of Facebook ads and Google ads, and I can do lead gen for you guys. So that's a little bit about lead gen, but
right.
For you, and basically use it as an experiment and run it at cost in the beginning, get some customer testimonials. So I created this company called Unmasked Marketing because I wanted to be results-based, completely transparent marketing for small businesses, and started doing that. And it was going well. I had more free time. I was making more than I was at my previous job, but it was basically like I chained myself in because now I had to report to these clients who, for example, I was sending leads to this one apartment complex. And I was sending leads. They're like, oh, we're not really seeing results. So I decided, like, I'm going to submit. So I submitted my own email and call on my own and had my friends do it, like 5 other friends, just to see what was going on. And their front desk wasn't following up at all with the leads that I was sending them. So again, it kind of went back to those. It's like I started in this kind of this I don't know what to call it, like almost like this rock. And then I got into this other situation and then kind of hit another rock. So then I realized I'm like, instead of servicing these other clients, like, and basically sending them traffic to their own products or services, what if I created my own fully? So I do the marketing and build it out, whatever that is. So that was kind of the next step of like, okay, like how can I, improve this more? At the same time, this is all happening like together. Like I believe this was ordained, like how this all happened. It was really interesting. At the same time this happened, I was able to maintain a really good relationship with the CEO of my former company, who left a little bit after I did, a couple months, I think, after I left. We had a really good relationship. Anyway, I'm trying to think of the unnecessary stuff to leave out. So like, there's, so many details, but formed a good relationship. He's very well networked within Cincinnati business culture, and he's a great guy. We talked it through and like, and came on really good terms. He's a really good friend of mine. And he connected me with 2 people. One was an angel investor, and we met up for lunch. And I was talking about my situation, about hey, I'm working with these clients, and I'm having this frustration. And she said, Sumner, if you look at the biggest companies in the world, what do they sell? And I'm like, oh, I'd never thought about that before. Actually, I literally don't know. I don't even know at the time, I don't even know what the biggest companies are. I know some big companies, but the list of by market cap, what are the largest companies? I don't know. It's like the vast majority, they sell products, Sumner. Like, if you want to make money, sell products. I'm like, oh, okay. So that was thought number 1. The number 2 instance that I had, this is again from Neil Ersick, my former boss, connected me with a guy named Neil Hoffman. Neil is known, he was on Shark Tank. He created a product called Mensch on a Bench. In his words, it's like Elf on a Shelf, but for the Jewish community. There's this kind of lack. So he created, Mensch on a Bench, and it kind of tells the story of Hanukkah, and it's this little kind of stuffed toy, Mensch. Very highly successful, multi-millionaire, of course. And I spoke with him, and he was telling me, like Sumner, at this point, and he didn't get into specifics about his finances, of course, but he's like, yeah, I mean, he's making millions. And he's like, and I'm working like 10 hours a week. And I'm bored. I'm so bored. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So it was kind of like this happened relatively quickly with each other. And I'm like, okay, this solidifies to me that I need to start selling products. That was like my fire. Like, I need to get out of services and get into products. It was from then that I'm like, okay, literally, I remember this was in our apartment, like my wife and I, and then now at the time, my wife and I, newlywed. It was crazy. It was like graduation, got married, got a job, quit that job. It was crazy, man. My health was horrible. Like I was like just trying to figure something out. And we literally were looking, reading blog articles, how to make money online, how to get rich quick. Not really, but how to make money online. And we came across this thing called Amazon FBA. This was again like 2017. So we're like, okay. And for whatever reason, it made a lot of sense to me. I'm like, okay, like I can find products that people are searching for or look at existing options and create a better option of something similar. I could do that. Like I'll figure out a way to make it work. So we launched our first product in, was it June of 2018 is actually when we officially started selling, like launch day. And it went really well. Our first product, really successful at the time. Looking at our images, looking at our PPC strategy, like, oh my gosh, we could do so much better. But it went well. But this is a very seasonal product, and we didn't take into account seasonality. And so I already quit my job. I'm doing this. This single product was generating more than both of our incomes combined. So Allie quit her job. And then the product sales started going down, and we're like, and we still like we have a safety net, like we're very financially responsible. We don't go in but it was still like a bit of a stress. We're like, okay, I had to pull out of like my what did I have? It was a 401k. I pulled like $6,000 out to like help support. I'm like, okay, like this wasn't the best idea, but let's hustle. And then we got a couple other products out. One of them wasn't successful, and it kind of went from there. It was a lot of hard learning in the beginning. But we caught on pretty quick. And I mean, of course, I do my best to learn as quickly from mistakes as possible to not make them again. And after like our fifth, I don't know how many products it was, but we kind of got way back kind of on track, again, generating more income than both of our jobs combined. And once it started rolling and we're like, okay, we're having success with this. Now we figured it out. Then I started realizing like, okay, like this Amazon thing really scared me. If I have all of my eggs in the Amazon basket and nothing else, like that doesn't seem wise. So it was at that time that we started thinking, at the time we were thinking, how do we make money, period? So we thought, oh, YouTube. People make a lot of money on YouTube. Let's start a YouTube channel. So what we did is, what are pain points that we basically figured out? Like, at the time when giveaways were a big deal with Amazon, like you basically give a bunch of products away for free or super, super cheap to like drive up rank, which obviously we don't do now at all. At the time, this second or third product that we launched, we didn't set a limit. So like all of our inventory vanished overnight. And we're like, oh crap. And there wasn't content about this on YouTube. So all the mistakes that we made, we learned it and then made a video about it, Or like how to create a shipping plan. We had to figure out on our own, create a video about it. So we had the products business that was growing. Then we started this YouTube, business or this YouTube channel and started growing that. I think starting 2019, like our first video ever, such a crappy video, but our first video ever, and started growing then. And we just remained consistent in both of them. Gosh, I mean, even from that point, from 2019 to now, it's been crazy journey. I mean, we're in such a better place than we were before. Next year, we hope to be and plan to be in an even better place. And year after year, we're just constantly like relentlessly trying to improve every aspect, get really, really clear on our life goals, and then make sure that the businesses that we have are vehicles that are really well suited to kind of meet those life goals. So that's kind of like, that's kind of how we got into Amazon and a little bit about the Amazon journey. Although as with any Amazon seller, there's a lot more. There's a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. And it sounds like the lesson with both the Amazon product sales and also with the YouTube channel is to just get started, right? Just do one, whether it's an initial product and like maybe that's not going to be the end all, but it gets you started, or one crappy video, but it gets you started, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's someone I was listening to. There's a really great. Now I don't do heavy workout. Obviously, I'm not super in great shape, but I try to exercise and sweat a little bit every day. And at the time, like years ago, of course, we got all our business things going on. There's this really great piece of advice that I'll never forget, and it's like do one push-up a day, just one. I'm like, that's not going to do anything for your health. That's mathematically incorrect. It's not going to do anything or much. The point is to do one push-up, because then you're like, okay, I already got, let's say in my shorts and my tank, and I'm doing this. I can do more than that. So it's like it's exactly getting started will propel. And then also this was in Jim Edwards' book called Copywriting Secrets. I'm not affiliated. It's a great book that I read. Amazing amazing. I love copywriting. I want to continue to improve my skill set with that. And this is an amazing book that kind of helped me with that. And in the book, he mentions this concept that's in other parts of entrepreneurship as well. It's like, before you're great, you have to be good. And before you're good, you have to be bad. And before you're bad, you have to be like terrible, like just absolutely horrendous. So he's like, most people they want, especially with YouTube, right? Like we want to start, or on Instagram, we want to look really pretty and have beautiful thumbnails and, clean audio and all this kind of thing. But the key is, getting started. Like you have to accept that you will be horrible in anything starting, or at least to have that mindset. Maybe because then it's better to be pleasantly surprised and be decent when you get started, but have the mindset, for me at least, this was very helpful, of being, I'm going to be horrible. It's going to be awful. And I'm going to learn from that. And then I'm going to get better and I'm going to be consistent. Like my mindset it's might have been how I was raised. I'm not really sure. But for me, I've always been like it was never if, like, oh, at the very beginning it was, is Amazon FBA scam? Is this going to work? Can I make it on YouTube? Very quickly changed to like if or could to it will. It's just a matter of time. And it's not just like it'll just happen. Like I'm going to it's going to, because I'm going to force it to the best of my, God willing, to the best of my ability. Whenever I make a mistake, what happened? Why did the mistake get made? How can we improve upon that? And then kind of keep moving forward and keep improving, keep learning from others that are way ahead of me. What are they doing? How are they thinking that I'm not thinking like this? And how can I implement that? And just be consistent and keep improving. And sorry, I know this is the last thing. It just, anything I find valuable, I have to share with everybody. I've been like this since I was a kid. I was like, I love sharing.
It's a good way to be.
Yeah. And Rich, do you follow at all a guy named Alex Hormozy?
I know who he is. I can't say I've watched any of his content. I know who he is. I know a lot of people that know him and like work with him, follow him. But yeah, he's one of the big guys.
Yeah, he's like a big guy and a big, kind of young guy. And if you've consumed, he's someone I follow. I respect him a lot. I might not agree with him on life things 100% like anybody, but I agree with a lot of what he says. And a lot of great content he puts out. Now I'm thinking about a bunch of things that he said that was really stuck with me. And it totally made me lose the one that I was going to say. I know there's the whole, you have to be bad before you get good. Oh yeah, that's what he said. More recently, it was one of the videos he posted. I totally see this. He's like, it is so easy to make money. It's so easy. It's not hard. He's like, and I realize this by traveling the world. We've been to 25 countries now. We've been to all different kinds of restaurants and Airbnbs. And I can tell you just from a restaurant perspective, it is not hard to have a solid restaurant. I could create a killer restaurant. But it's crazy the number of businesses, including Amazon and any business, that they don't care about the customer. They don't treat them well. They don't pick up the phone when someone calls them. They could care less about their Google business profile, have no social following, just kind of hire any employee, don't have systems in place. Like this is like the majority of businesses. And he was describing this. I'm like, that's totally true, because all these businesses I've gone to, the majority, they suck. Most businesses are terrible. And it's like, it's very, very, especially now with my generation and the next generation, in my opinion, there's a lot of great people, but there's a lot of people who are lazy, who are self-centered. And when you're constantly focused on the customer, whoever your customer is, and focus on them, like, how can I deliver more value to you than anybody else, and keep doing that every year, keep increasing the amount of value that I'm giving you. If that's your mindset, it's like 0.1% of the world has that mindset, let alone 1%. So it's like, if you do that, like you will quite easily outperform. And same thing if you go to apply for a job that you really want, it goes into every area. And I'm like, it's so true that very few people are willing to put in the care and the work. And yeah, it's I don't know. In some ways, it's harder to make, especially as an entrepreneur, it's harder in some ways. But over time, in the long run, I found that it's actually easier than I expected when I have a very long-term view about it, and I keep this incremental improvement, just keep improving.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like also just being focused on the customer. And it's like, if you do that, then business is not difficult. It's not difficult to make money if you focus on creating a lot of value, over delivering, and so like so you've been selling a lot of products now. You've been selling products and you've been adding products. Like, what do you think is next for you in your journey as an Amazon seller?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a great question because Ali and I have been talking about this. So a couple of things, kind of looking ahead with Amazon and then also with other kind of asset classes or other investments, other businesses. So first things first, Amazon is getting more and more difficult and expensive. It's still a great opportunity, an amazing opportunity, one of the best in my opinion. But Amazon advertising cost per clicks have increased. I should say this: a lot of the strategies that were used in the past are quickly becoming outdated. I think there's always room for new and innovative products anywhere. Kickstarter type products, Shark Tank type products. Always going to be need for that. This sort of like these Me Too products already, where you basically create the exact same product from Alibaba, slap your logo, that's already dead. But I find in terms of with logistics, with kind of managing cash flow, it's going well, but I found it's kind of increasing difficulty. So at the same time this is happening, we're looking at kind of the Amazon ecosystem and seeing this increase in kind of capital that's needed, also the increase in skill set that is needed for new sellers. A lot of people don't talk about that, and I've noticed, I've looked at multiple success, 8-figure sellers, and something I noticed that they all have in common is, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but they're smart. Like they have a certain level, a certain type of intelligence. A lot of times they're not academically intelligent. It's kind of, I don't know, not worthless, but it's a different types of intelligence. But they kind of naturally have this ability to see certain products like, oh yeah, that not just, they have the data, they see the product, they're like, yes, this can be successful. Here's how we can make it successful.
Right. If good
seeing product images like,
about that.
Yeah. No, that's true. So anyway, I see it increasing in the necessary amount of capital needed, in kind of complexity, and kind of less and less passive as time has gone on since we started in 2018. So with that, our thought is we actually have 5 new big, these will be our biggest products that we launch. Like we're doing heavy, like we've taken out tens of thousands of dollars that we've kind of allocated for these new product launches that are happening within the next 45 days. So we're pushing these new products, getting them ranked, and then focusing heavily on profitability over the next like several months and year to kind of increase our profitability. And then at that time, either kind of continue with our kind of delegation, our systems, and kind of let it run and just kind of milk it out as far as time can go, until that, diffusion of innovation curve kind of like goes down, or sell the business. But either way, whether we keep it running or sell in the next couple of years, we're really looking to get into international real estate. My wife actually is an architect, or she studied architecture, and we've been in a bunch of Airbnbs. I have a friend who has 4 Airbnb properties. He does, what does he do per? It's about, is it $5K per property that he has? Very, very passive. I've been, again, talking to a lot of people in the real estate space, and I'm like, for our personal goals, which we're always kind of reassessing every year, and it's different for everybody. For somebody else, it's be horrible. This is like the worst thing to do. But for us, we're kind of analyzing, we're like, okay, basically, let's take out this capital. Maybe we keep the Amazon thing, going, or we sell it. But either way, we take some of that capital and we start allocating toward real estate, cryptocurrency, and then a percentage we'll put into, index funds in emerging markets. But we're very interested in owning properties internationally. That's kind of something for a few reasons. I'm also like, I don't know, I'm also a bit, like I told you before, a bit paranoid. I'm looking at the next decades, and with BlackRock, with Vanguard.
I wouldn't say paranoid, I'd say skeptical.
I'm skeptical. Yes, I am skeptical.
Paranoid is like everyone's out to get me. Skeptical is like, well, this may or may not work. Like, prove that it's going to work, right?
Yeah. And with that being, I'm interested in long-term physical assets. So I'm more interested in storing value in gold, in real estate, also crypto, which I know is digital, it's not physical, more so than Fidelity, which I've been doing. We always allocate a percentage toward crypto. We have a SEP IRA that we allocate a percentage of our profits to, just kind of diversify a little bit off Amazon. The majority goes back into the business to keep growing it, but a little bit to kind of diversify. So everything's in Amazon, we keep reinvesting, and then let's say the account gets shut down or something happens, have to re-rank. That's just our personal thought, and definitely not financial advice, of course.
Yeah, don't listen to me about it. It makes a lot of sense is to not put all your eggs in one basket. I don't think you need to be a certified financial planner to, to give that advice. Is like do a bunch of different things. So if one of them goes south, then you're not completely, out of the game. Yeah,
and I'll say this might be but a big learning for me. I might actually make a full YouTube video about this because it was a big thing for me. And I want to be, to an extent, as open as possible. Certain things I'll always keep private, but I want to be as transparent. I invested pretty heavily in different cryptocurrencies. And there was a time that we began investing in crypto. So we bought Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, some different kind of cryptocurrencies through Celsius Network. If you're not familiar with Celsius, you're probably hearing it like, oh no. So Celsius Network.
Yeah. No, I'm familiar. Yes.
Yeah. Basically this whole scheme where it's, hey, banks are not your friend, which I overall agree with, but whatever. But anyway, banks are not your friend, invest with us, whatever. I didn't fully understand how it worked. I bought crypto with Celsius and you earn APY. So you earn interest on your crypto. Now, my wife Allie asked me like, oh, so where's that interest come from? How are you getting interest on this? Like you buy, let's say $10,000 worth of USDC, a stable coin. Basically it's $10,000. It'll always be worth $10,000 and I can earn 8% interest. So I'm like, I can earn 8% on this cash. So instead of keeping that cash in a bank, I could keep it in Celsius, earn way more interest than I would have. I don't know what a bank is, 0.03%, like compared to 8. So it sounded very attractive. But then my wife asked, how are you getting where's the interest coming from that they're paying you? And I'm like, oh, I don't really know. And that was a big mistake. I invested in something I didn't understand and I suffered because of it. So we had about $11,000, which I'm glad it wasn't more. We again, diversified even within that because we weren't going to put everything there. 11K was in there. Celsius basically declared bankruptcy. And then I was like, oh, that's fine. They're bankrupt. Doesn't matter. I'll go pull my crypto out. So I go to, pull my crypto out. He's like, no, you can't. I'm like, I thought this was, wait a second. I thought I bought the Bitcoin through you. You know what I mean? Like, it's not yours. I bought it through you. I was getting interest from you, but like, it's not yours. It's like, it was mine on paper, not in reality. And that sunk in for me because then I started thinking about the stock market. So I invest a lot with Fidelity and I'm not calling out any companies. I don't know. But this is what got me a little bit skeptical to where I'm like, is there any point in the future where I'm investing through Vanguard, through Fidelity or something like that, traditionally into index funds? And then later I'm like, yeah, let me pull out my money or give me my dividend payments or whatever. And then Fidelity's like, yeah, no, that's ours. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, give it to me. So it got me a bit, basically this experience that I had with Celsius reshaped my view on investments. It's a little bit different than traditional. And that's why I'm more focused. It's kind of a mix between crypto and real estate. I love physical products. I think it's a great way to invest if it's done correctly. There's so many ways you could do it, but I think it's great. I mean, what's a great thing about physical products that I love is, let's say you invest 10K into a new product. So you invest it and it doesn't sell as well as you wanted it to. You could liquidate that like on Etsy or in bulk or just run, ads pretty high and drop your price. And you can still recoup all or a big majority of that amount, your principal that you invested. It's a lot of stress and a lot of time, which is valuable. That's a really great kind of advantage versus if you invested 10K in Tesla goes bankrupt. Oh, there it goes. You invest 10K in a new product that there's a lot of data behind. It just the design, the market didn't accept as well, and you have to kind of liquidate. But for me, I'm viewing products more short-term and then real estate and crypto more as long-term. And I'm getting more and more kind of long-term focused. And like I said, with some of the skill sets that my wife and I have, man, we have some interesting ideas for real estate. Like we're going to treat Airbnb like Amazon and do anyway, that's a whole other, but super excited about it.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think basically the question that anyone investing in something should ask is, where is the risk? There's always a risk somewhere, right? And so like with Amazon, the risk is, well, like you don't own the platform. So technically it's all up to them. Although, over the past more than half a decade, there have been a lot of sellers that have done very well. And you can say similarly about crypto. It's like the risk is that it doesn't actually, it's not grounded in anything. It could go to zero, right? But there are people that have done well with it by riding it along the right pathway. But you also point to another thing as far as like more traditional investments, through through someone like Fidelity, and I think that's to me the most interesting thing about crypto and let's say just crypto, right? So first of all, you've got a a lot of people saying like, this is great. We're not beholden to any government. Like we have money that doesn't like, it's not regulated by anyone. And like, we're not keeping our money in a traditional bank and blah, blah, blah. And then like, things happen. Like, a few years ago, someone, died with who was running I'm going to get it wrong, but it's basically a crypto holding company, right? That like he died with the passwords, and $1 billion worth of people's crypto just evaporated. Like they didn't own it anymore. And then you say, well, how could this happen? Well, that's one of the reasons why banks are so regulated. Like they're regulated to prevent things like that from happening. Like it can't happen with a traditional bank. And similarly with securities, right? And people say, this is the Wild West. We could trade it and it's off the books and nobody knows. But securities and like actual like financial firms like Fidelity, Merrill Lynch, et cetera, brokers, they're so heavily regulated. And it's and that exact reason is like they have to make sure that a person investing can be confident that certain things can't just disappear, and that they even understand what the risks are. And like, so they're buying Tesla stock and it could go out of business, and they understand that. Or if they're buying a bond through a brokerage, what the kind of like what that's based on. Even bonds, like say that are from say like U.S. bonds, it's if the U.S. went bankrupt, you would lose that money, for example, or you might. And like, to some extent, I don't know what I'm talking about exactly, except I do, in the sense that everything has its own risk, and everything is backed on by a certain assumption that if that assumption goes away, then you might lose your money. And so like it seems like real estate is something which you're comfortable with the risk tolerance, and so you want to branch out into. I think that's
absolutely cool. No, and you brought up a great point, especially about regulation, which gets a lot of heat. I've realized in the short time, I have way more to learn and way more and I'm willing to. How everything is. This is one of the biggest. This is the probably biggest thing that I've learned in my life to this point so far. Is everything is more complex and nuanced than people make it out to be. So, for example, it's like, oh, banks are evil, crypto good. No, like it's more than that. And exactly like regulation, like pointing out all the flaws that have happened, or, rating agencies that got paid off to whatever. Yeah, that happens. But there's a reason, like just because bad things happen doesn't mean it's all evil, it's all bad. There are reasons. Don't be so quick to destroy the base on which your country or this financial system was built. Like, be very careful with that. And that's something that I've learned. So yeah, exactly. The regulation was created for good. And I can name so many, but we've seen so many in this unregulated market with crypto, all these kind of crazy things that have happened, negative, people getting their money taken, people getting killed, people losing, like there's a reason for that regulation, yep, even if it has flaws.
Right. Absolutely. Well, cool. This is very interesting. And I know on your YouTube channel, you talk about a lot of different issues that face sellers, and also provide a lot of really practical, tactical, techniques for optimizing their selling experience, and even for just getting started. So, did you just talk a little bit about the YouTube channel?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we just kind of like, you got a little snippet of it here, of the energy and the type of content we kind of talk about. But basically, we try to find topics that are very, very important to sellers that not a lot of other people are talking about, and create basically tutorial-based videos. We bring on experts like Rich here is actually recently on our channel, and that video is actually going live here in the next 2 days. So whenever this kind of goes live, I'm sure that'll be up on our channel. And it's amazing, by the way. Rich went in a ton of detail. If you want to become, I went through like the whole video because we had to edit it, and going back through the notes, I'm like taking notes. But so we bring on experts like Rich, for example, and others in the space, create very step-by-step tutorial-based videos in order to help sellers, like right there, like for free. You go watch it. You now know how to set up a Google search ad that can increase organic rank. Here's how to track your results. Here's how to create, Amazon attribution. Everything's laid out there. No upsell. if you want, we do have, courses on Udemy and Skillshare that are very, very affordable in case you want to, but there's a lot of really, we're trying to, again, follow that kind of Alex Hormozy framework, just over deliver in value first and keep providing value until someone asks us, hey, how can you help us, in paid? And that's how I try to, especially as a young guy like me, I need to prove myself. So I figure as of now, overall, it's my strategy for trying to prove myself out there. And yeah, I guess about 20,000 people now found it valuable. So hopefully you do as well.
And how to contribute the most that you can to others, to share with them how you've like the problems you've encountered and how you solved them by making a video each time you encountered a problem and showed and shared with others so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel. So that's
I wish. Yeah, absolutely. It's any way that I can help reduce pain for people, any pain that I've got through, like I'm all for it. Like it gives me a ton of satisfaction and joy. Then I look back at the pain of whatever I went through. I'm like, now I know why I went through that. Like now that I can help someone else, like it's very, very fulfilling for me. And I love it. I love it.
Yes. And to quote an old song, we haven't got time for the pain, but there may be a few people in the audience that'll know what I'm talking about. But Sumner, if people want to learn more about you or get in touch with you, how do they go about doing so?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, we have the YouTube channel. It's kind of our biggest platform. And also, aside from that, you can follow me Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I have a presence on pretty much every social platform. So yeah, connect with me there. If you have questions, let me know. Happy to anything that I can share to help. Like that's what I'm here for. And connect with you, fellow sellers. I would love to connect and network with fellow sellers as well.
Awesome. And so Sumner, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this podcast. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's been fantastic.
Thanks for listening to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web at innovationsandbreakthroughs.com, and we'll see you next time.